I have to admit, this piece of kit came out grand. In fact, it's more impressive than I thought it was going to be. And with a little eager motivation, some concentrated skill, and maybe a smidge of luck, I managed to pull it off with a smile. To begin this build, I have to be honest about something with you. I didn't actually film building the Mitersaw cabinets. Of course, then I felt guilty, so to make it up to you, I filmed building some extra cabinets to show you a dead simple way of construction. I did film building the rollout plywood storage racks and everything else, including a rustic hickory top, Craig Mitersaw fence, a storage rack for table saw jigs, and install, which you will see in this video. These cabinets will be simple frameless boxes with no dados, no rabbets, no grooves, and no fancy joinery. Just simple, whoa, 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 dude. Watch the camera. Jeez, that was close. Anyways, I know I'm using the fanciest equipment that SawStop sells, and I should as a production shop, but you can cut this 3/4 plywood any way you want. A track saw, a skill saw, even a jigsaw if you utilize the factory edges as the front. I'm actually still getting used to cutting large panels on a table saw since I just recently came upon this larger space for my business. Yeah, so if you haven't seen my past videos, I used to run Fortress Fine Woodworks out of a 1-car garage, so you certainly don't need a large decked out wood shop to make this happen. I will say though, since I've gotten this crosscut table with 2 flip stops, I can have 3 active measurements to pick from at once if I include the table saw fence and both stops. And with obviously not being sponsored, my honest opinion is it's the only thing that beats a track saw for me. As I promised, these cabinets have no fancy joinery, so the panels are just butted together with some glue and brad nailed quite a bit for strength. And you might ask, why do you use such intense joinery on clients' builds, yet you don't need it for your shop furniture? And that's a remarkably smart question. You're a quick thinker. Well, the fake answer is that you don't need dados, rabbets, or pocket holes to make solid cabinets. And the real answer is that if you know how to fix them because you built them, why not cut down on labor and take a chance? Sure, you might break one in the future, but you can fix it and get on with your life. When it's client work though, I will always take solid construction and no callback. So you mean there's no dados? Nope. No pocket hole screws? Mm-mm. No rabbets and complicated cuts? No. No insane... Dude! We already went over this. If you weren't, I was late to the party. The wall cabinets you previously saw me building are going above my utility sink. This open-ended cabinet will also have adjustable shelves, but it's designed to store table saw jigs and access them from 2 different sides. So a support stud takes the place of the front right corner. Now it's time to cut the thin back panels for the sink cabinets. I'm using extra waste material here, so I decided to join them like you would with veneers, using glue and painter's tape for clamping force. This works perfectly fine as long as the joint is tight. Then I can cut the panel to the correct size and staple it right to the back of the cabinet. No grooves or glue here. I suggest adding an inner support cleat at the top. This will hold mounting screws a lot better than the cheap underlayment plywood used for the back. And of course, shelf pin holes need to be drilled. And there they are, dead simple. Since I didn't show you the actual Mitersaw station build, I'll go over a few important details. The drawer boxes are the same exact construction as the cabinets, butted together with brad nails. And the slides are some cheap slides from Amazon. I'll link everything in the description. This odd thing you see me doing is just an attachment panel. I'll come back to this in a second. The rollout plywood storage will be carrying a lot of weight, so the bottom and top will be 2 panels joined for a strong joint. Hinges will mount the unit to the board on the wall. The reason for the wall board is because I don't have a wall stud in the right location, so the easiest way without opening the wall is to span a board across 2 studs, then mount to it. This type of construction will be very strong since it forms a rabbet or a rebate without the hassle of cutting one. I'm marking where the panel will go so I can be fairly precise with the glue. Then the 2 panels can be sandwiched together and brad nailed 1,000 times. The casters I really like from Amazon have a great break, but they only come in swivel. So to prevent them from turning, I pre-drill and drive a screw through the swivel plate to lock it. Now comes the tricky part of mounting them. They look super crooked here, but I'll show you why. Each caster travels on a different radius from the pivot point. One easy way to get this right is to have the wheel perpendicular to the hinge point or parallel to the circumference of its arc. Smart, huh? Well, I'm not so smart because I actually screwed this up the first try. I was imagining the pivot central to the wheels, but it's actually the hinge corner, of course. Now that the wheels are mounted correctly, I can give it a roll and see if I win the big bucks. And I must have gotten it right. The sides are also 3/4 thick particle board. These sheets are 10 feet long though, and need to be cut down to just under 9 feet. It's easier to install the hinges now. Undersized holes will allow the screws to be much tighter. Then with the lower assembly in its final location, the side panel can be glued into place. First screwing the hinges to the wall for support, then adding screws to the joint for strength. This will only work if the concrete underneath is relatively level. I will also mention a warning. Build at your own risk. You are responsible for your design and fabrication. After the top is mounted, the other side can be attached. These things are really heavy, like 90 or 100 pounds apiece, so it's an understatement when I say I'm a little spooked when this happens. And that's how he died that day. No, actually, I get extremely lucky because one of the other cabinets is there to catch it before it gains too much momentum and crashes to the floor. Now everything can be screwed together and a middle shelf can be pocket hole screwed into place. That way I can change the position later if I want to. Some back plates can be added to stop the plywood from sliding out the back. Then the second unit can be materialized from thin air. This thing's already really heavy. I'm anxious to see if it'll hold several 100 pounds of plywood. So a quick round over of the edges, and let's give this puppy a try. It is relatively easy to get the plywood in, so that's good. A few clamps will keep everything from flopping around. And what do you know? She rolls. The wheels are probably feeling it though. The doors for the cabinets are just plywood panels with holes drilled for concealed hinges. Then one quick final sanding, much faster than usual. And one tinted coat of Sherwin-Williams wall and wood primer will smooth things out, and the tint will actually help the black cover. I choose to do the edge banding during this step because then I can cut everything and sand the edges flush. I call this composition Gothic Baby Blue. The top coat is Sherwin-Williams satin trim urethane in tricorn black. I always love how satisfying it is to spray black. This second pass is only an effort to have full coverage with just one coat. And honestly, it really does a great job for a mid-grade top coat. Nothing compared to Envirolac, but 1/2 the cost of an average industrial coating. I'll put a link in the description. I'll also link the airless spray setup I'm using. Last piece. I am trying hard to grow as a channel, so click that subscribe button and I will keep providing better and better content. And don't worry, if you don't spray, I haven't forgotten about you. I'm just using a normal nap roller here with a nice thick coat. Getting the paint on fast and rolled out smooth will help it all melt together. The roller lines should basically vanish as it dries to its satin finish. This wood has been one of my favorites for a long time, and it's surprisingly underused on YouTube. This Rustic Hickory veneered MDF will be the countertop. Since the edges are exposed MDF, I joint a long board of hickory to create the frame. The corners are of course mitered, then everything is glued and brad nailed on. Watch out for those fingers. I'm really not a fan of the protection pads used with net-backed discs, because they do throw off the amazing balance of these sanders. And one final step is routing a round over. Hickory can be challenging to tool, so if you are comfortable doing a climb cut, it sure reduces tear out. Just set it on a slow setting and use both hands. A water-based poly looks great on hickory, only adding a touch of saturation to the color. Now, one thing I didn't mention before is that I need my Mitersaw station to be held out an extra 2 inches from the wall for the fence to clear the plywood storage. So after straightening and ripping some softwood studs to width, I can screw them to the wall. The straighter, the better. I'm also incorporating dust collection into the inlet where the saw is to capture airborne dust, and will especially be helpful if I'm cutting dusty MDF. To start the install, I'm going to shim every cabinet off the ground in case there is ever a light flood. Screwing to the wood cleat is simple enough. Then I can continue the process down the line, screwing each cabinet to the last, then to the cleat. The Mitersaw platform gets support cleats. And the cabinets need some pocket holes to mount the top. If you notice in this clip, I extended the hickory frame an extra 2 inches to account for the extra distance that the cabinets are held out. Then everything can be screwed together and checked for parallelism. The upper cabinets are pretty simple. When I set them in place, I just ensure that the bottom is settled and flat on the hickory top. Then some screws hold it to the upper cleat. The dust collection cabinet can be mounted to the right cabinet, but not to the wall yet. The left side needs to be set, then with the tops of the cabinets even, they can be screwed together, then to the wall. You can actually see why a straight line would be important here. I made an attachment plate to mount the blast gate to the cabinet, so now I can mount it with screws from the bottom side. Then the rest of the Nordfab piping can be clipped on. I will have an in-depth and honest video about this coming soon. Some procrastinated detail work can be done for the adjustable shelves. And now the Mitersaw can be leveled with the upper deck. Luckily, I got it bang on, but you can use shims under the platform if you need to move it up. Since the height is correct, I can install the tavern door jamb, followed by the door panels. then drill for handles and slap them on. This is where the Festool CT vac will be. And now that the miter saw is set up, I can use it to cut the toe kick. I'm just pin nailing without glue so it's easier to take apart in the event that I move locations. Some touch-ups nourish the OCD, and painting the wall will help quiet those compulsive thoughts. I also pre-made some panels that can cover the 2-inch gaps. The drawers can be clicked into place. These slides are decent for the cheap price. Then the drawer faces can be mounted using the stumpy nubs method. This uses the hardware holes to pre-mount the face. I finish one whole cabinet using playing cards as spacers, then come back afterwards to add securing screws from the inside. The rest of the doors are mounted easy enough. Here's another lucky draw. The blast gate just barely misses the hinge. Thankfully. For the fence, I sprayed some 3/4 plywood black, and now I'm temporarily fixing the Craig top track to it. Then with the track back off, I can screw the fence to the countertop, making sure it's in line with the Mitersaw fence. At this point, the saw is screwed to the platform, and I can reattach the top track to its pre-drilled holes. My right side fence must be a bit thinner because the track protrudes about 1 mm. So to remedy this, I simply use a thin shim to eliminate the front lip. You can see here that it's important that it doesn't interfere. It's also handy to have a bottom bevel on your fence for a place for sawdust to go. The last step for the fence is setting up the tape measure. This kit makes it really easy to dial in, and I'll also have an unsponsored link for it. The ironic part is I'm somehow screwing it up here. What I didn't realize is I stuck the completely wrong number to the mark, and now I'm sticking the very tacky adhesive tape all the way down the line. Like a doofus. I even wrote the correct measurement, right here. Luckily it pulls right back up since the tape is metal, and the correct number can be placed on the mark. Some scissors just barely manages to cut the tape at the ends. If the lens cursor shown here isn't exactly accurate on either stop block, you can loosen a screw and move it side to side for perfect calibration. Moving on to finishing up the rest of the shenanigans. The sink cabinets can be installed. By the way, if you're still watching, thank you. These days it's hard to retain attention spans, and even if I juggled 3 running skill saws over my head while balancing on a giant red ball, I think viewers would still lose interest. So really, thank you for your time and dedication. The plywood I used from the big box store on these 2 cabinets delaminated from the water-based finish, which is a shame. The wheels can be attached to the rack for the table saw jig, and this one's for you, Matthias. The shelves are adjustable and it can be rolled to its resting place and loaded up. I've been waiting months for this moment. I can finally unbox everything and get organized again. This is not only important for my mental health, but for my sobriety. Clean shop, clean mind. And of course, one last touch is some LEDs for some snazz and pizzazz. Then some small trim can be pin nailed on to cover the front view of the exposed lighting. Well, you made it. Thank you. And as always, it's time for final shots. you can subscribe here and don't forget to check out this video.